computer-programmed reality. We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Hey, what's happening out there? Robert Phoenix, broadcast to you live from Fredericksburg, Texas, also known as Flyover. What's happening? There is the momentous vote that is about to take place in 17 minutes. I don't know if you've been following what's been happening in Washington over the past few days, but it has been one mind-blowing experience. I sat there and I watched Christine Blasey Ford give her testimony yesterday. It is one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. It was, wow. Where do I start? Well, first of all, she had all the look and feel of somebody who was triggered and traumatized to be about a 12 or 13-year-old. There was somebody over on my YouTube channel that said she had 16 cords of attachment and was deeply mind controlled, and that she has 60% authenticity, or 60% being congruent, 40% of her completely wiped out. What we saw yesterday, in my estimation, was somebody who was triggered and traumatized and had the exact, and I mean the exact, tenor, note, and tone of about a 12-year-old. It was utterly bizarre. Now, the Democrats have just come back, and Feinstein is having a nice little conversation with her fellow reptile, Chuck Grassley. Look like they're from the same reptile tribe. Aging lizard people. Cory Booker went off. That wasn't really that was not a testament for the courage of Christine Blasey Ford and the complete and utter denunciation of the process itself. That was a presidential, hey, I'm running for president kind of moment in the speech for Cory Booker. Okay, he was using that screen time in order to appeal in a weird way to a nonpartisan base. Every time I look at Cory Booker, I want to take a shower. So they've come back now. The Democrats took off. We're about 12 minutes away. Some interesting pieces about the Blasey Ford. The Blasey Ford testimony yesterday. She went on and on and on and on and on and on about how traumatized she was. She spoke to her deeply traumatized conditioning. In fact, it was on full display in front of everybody. And yet, this woman is a professional. She's a psychotherapist, a professor. She actually works with people. She has a PhD. She's a professor. And she works with people at Stanford who are getting their graduate degrees in psychology slash psychiatry. And she's a basket case. What does this say about the profession? It is an indictment on those two practices. Now, there are good therapists out there. Don't get me wrong. But if we just look at it from the surface, that's an utter #fail. But in my estimation, she was triggered, traumatized, mind controlled to appear as if she was a 12-year-old girl, taken back to that very precious time in her life. Whatever happened or didn't happen, we don't know. And as I said before, her mentor was Dr. Frederick Melgus, who is known as one of the great mind control masters in the country, and basically taught it at Stanford, also known as CIA Langley West. That was her teacher. And not only that, but she's got deep roots into the CIA with her father. Her father was a banker. Her father was a guy that was laundering money for the CIA. I mean, you go back and you can go into her past and you'll find the tentacles of the octopus, which are the intelligence agencies and the mechanisms that they use in order to target and train and direct and guide people. This is what I believe. This is what was happening with her when she drank that Coca-Cola. First of all, who drinks Coke at these Senate hearings? The Judiciary Committee for the Judiciary. She's sitting there drinking Coke, and she's drinking it as if she's a child. So the Coke itself is supposed to be symbolic of something that somebody younger would do, even though she was talking about how much she needed caffeine. But the whole thing was just bizarre. And she spoke in this little girl voice. And of course, they caught her on just a tiny error. And that error was that she did not like to fly, that she was afraid of flying. And yet it was established that, well, she loves scuba diving and she flies from California to Costa Rica to Bora Bora. So all these various places. Well, that's different. That's traveling for pleasure. You got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. Okay, lots of huddling going on right now as they're getting ready to make this historic vote. I'm telling you right now, the country is not going to be the same after this, either way, because in spite of Cory Booker's bullshit rhetoric about nonpartisanship and trying to be American and bring the country together, this has been one of the most secondary or tertiary divisive moments in recent memory. Now, Kavanaugh, he was justifiably upset. He came out swinging and went after Feinstein. Feinstein didn't know it hit her. She didn't expect that. Well, Feinstein had about 24 hours to figure it out. She came back and spit back at him today. So whatever happens after this vote, this country's not going to be the same. I'm telling you right now. It is not going to be the same. I'm almost tempted to just continue to talk here for the next 10 minutes. And let's tune in. Let's see what's happening here. I'm gonna turn up the volume and I'm gonna see what's taking place. A lot of hushed silence right now in the Senate Judiciary Chambers. Lindsey Graham, who actually came out looking like somebody with a pulse yesterday, the little military, he is little, he's a small man, He's about 5'5", maybe. There's a guy named Mr. Whitehouse. Can you believe that? Mr. Whitehouse. He's one of these blue bloods. He was a pain in the ass yesterday. Total pain in the ass. Him and Blumenthal. Pain in the ass. A lot of hushed conversations going on. The Democrats have returned, although not all of them. A few are currently missing. But whatever happens with this vote, either way, it is going to change the nature and the tenor of this country. Because the fires of separation, duality, divide and conquer have been stoked for the last 2 years. 2 years. Now, I'm going to go on record and say that this is probably something that has backfired on the side of the Democrats. And the big game is the November midterms, and what'll shake down after that. I don't believe that we're going to get a clear count in the vote during that time based on the chart. We're going to be talking to, well, I already talked with them, but part of today's show is going to be the exploration of part 3 with Steve and Krys Crimi and the esoteric roots of the United States of America as it relates to John Dee. In this final edition, Sir Francis Bacon, the architect of the new-Atlantis and the influencer of just about every one of the founding fathers. So we get into that, and that'll happen in the next 10 minutes or so. I'm just trying to read the tea leaves here as we're watching the very hushed and serious conversations taking place. Deals probably being made right now at this moment. There's Grassley and Feinstein. They look like they were separated at birth. Don't they? Put a wig on Grassley, look just like Dianne Feinstein. I don't know how these people do this. I really don't. Like, if I didn't like somebody, and I knew that they were a corrupt piece of shit, I couldn't sit next to them. I guess this is why I'm sitting here in Fredericksburg, Texas, broadcasting to you, versus having some belief in this entirely corrupt system. But at the same time, we have to deal with it, right? We have to deal with it because the system, in some ways, still defines our interconnected nature to this social mechanism that we're part of at a large-scale level. Here's a guy walking slowly back to his seat. Who is this? What do we got here? Looks like it's Robert Byrd. I don't think it is Robert. Is it Robert Byrd? I thought he retired. No, it's not. This guy at White House looks a little distressed. He looks a little distressed. Another blue blood. Who is this guy at White House? Let's look him up. Senator Whitehouse. What's his story? Where is he from? Let's see what he's got going on here. I'm just kind of biding some time to figure out where this vote is going to go, because I do want to report on it.